Welcome to TradeTheMBA.com. This is John's report is for the 15th of the month, June. Well, we recognized the weakness as it was starting to come, but from a full reset, we knew we were going to get some nice bouncing back and forth in between, and of course the ranges. The troubling part was the dip below the red line had not been solved, so when we made the new lows and started up, there was a chance that they could hold on to things, but as we saw late Friday, weakness started just before the close, and that was a piece of cake at that particular point because it just continued from there. So far stabilized right off the 61% line right here on the Morgan chain, getting very close to our expected return back to the 2867 range. Eventually we'll get there. We had some nice short-term buyer that popped in here, but we've had a full reset of the shakeout now in negative territory, so until it rebounds, I would expect more weakness, and we're getting the extra volatility that we were looking for. There's no shock in the expectation for this. It's a clean DOC spread as well from the big decline, and ranges continue to be just exactly what we're looking for. So very excited about that. Of course, Euro's got a lot to fill back in here from these positive extremes. Like we talked about, going all the way back to the just under 110 range. And that was just a big buildup, both in the fact that Europe, flights and everything have started to resume. So there's a lot more activity developing here. Not that you've really had the same restrictions as Europe has had. So that should be a bonus, but there's still not a whole lot of great economic news. Of course, the stall for the U.S. has been the civil unrest, as well as resurgence of number of cases, though it's really kind of strange because the number of cases is always irrelevant. It's how many people are making it into the hospitals and whether or not they are going to be constrained. It is interesting that we are seeing now that doctors and that are going after the FDA and that on their ban of hydroxychloroquine. I'll put some links to articles on that one in the Skype chat, but again, it's another interesting one because if it has the prophylaxis the president is using, it certainly should be something that's made available to a broader cross-section of people, particularly those with initial diagnosis. It should almost be like a basis, the only thing out there that's showing any assistance whatsoever from a gold oil standpoint. A little bit fade back right here. This has just been a softening, but we've got a complete reset, so it's just a matter of it easing off, and depending on activity now is going to be really what it takes to push this to the next level, and that is what everybody is going to be focused on, making sure that the economy is starting to do the rebound effect that was anticipated, whether or not the Fed will do anything additional, or if Congress. So if we look at, we had that massive decline, so we had this excess exuberance when we get down below the negative 13, that you've reached your excess point, and then as it returned back from there, basically what we did was started to return back to equilibrium from the lows. We had a lot of good signals as we started to get even oversold at these peak levels, and then this final series came through, and then we ended up with our Sigma events, and once that rolled over, geez, it filled it all back in, because like I was pointing out when I posted in that when you reach these levels, if you don't break past them, you come back to the previous one. If that one starts to show some weakness in there, well, then you look to the next one. I always said below the 3050, look out for 3013 range, and sure enough, I mean, it didn't take long actually for it to get exactly to that, and then you started basing in between the 2990 and 3013, and that's where it started to pick up the momentum. And of course, because the algos like to take advantage of those spots, pushed it right back up through, and again right back up towards the 3050. Couldn't quite get up to that level, and that was kind of a precursor warning, and once you fail to do those kinds of things, you suffer some pain, and then again they turned it right back on. This time it dipped a little bit below the 2990, and they realized they needed to get a little bit busier, and that was enough to drive it back up. And again, all they're doing is attacking it at these key points, pushing it up, liquidate, and you're ready to, resupport right back down at the lower area. And the only problem with that is it's not real buying. It's artificial inflation, and it's basically just us watching for the buildup of momentum and then going with it to each of the different levels. And that's the way you have to kind of approach it. And as we came to the end of the day, we had a full reset going in here, but they were dipping below the negative 13. And when it gets below that, that's, as I mentioned before, the equivalent of it coming from the top side of it. And that weakness played out because you gapped down in futures that just basically, you filled all these positive extremes that had taken place here. And the dip below the red line had already been satisfied from this one, but you had this previous one over here that needed to get filled back in, and that's exactly what it did, and did it right for the open. So clean and easy, but we've already had a lot of action from the European session prior to the open, which is just in a little bit. I've got to head out, so I will be gone most of this session, but I think you can expect a lot more difficulties because if this 2963 isn't able to hold, we're going to be breaking below these lows to our next level down below, and I think it's a little more interesting because then you start having people start debating whether or not they can actively play in this. We've seen a huge increase in the number of amateurs or regular players jump into this simply because of time at home, nothing else to do, plenty of stimulus money. So why not become a speculator, because it's so easy for them to just pop in and do that. And then all of a sudden they get burned really quick. What was it that I saw that one trader, Robinhood, he was just playing around with stuff and ended up with a negative 700,000. These kinds of things happen, and they always love to showcase these places where people do those kinds of things. They tell you to stay away from options and futures, and it's like, well, no, if you know what you're doing, it's not a problem. But how many people, these days take the time to actually learn how to do something? Not that many, unfortunately. Ergo, it's easier to go out, riot, loot, than it is to actually, learn and invest. Enough of my soapbox on there. Currently, we're down just about 60. I would expect we're going to probably continue to test at these levels. But if we start to see weakness, I would say that you're probably going to take out these lows. So keep that one in mind. As always, trade well. We'll talk to you later.